Sarah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How were you first introduced to Caffe Lena, and what are some of the earliest memories that you have of Caffe Lena?
I was introduced to Caffe Lena when I was still down in Boston, which was my stop after I finished college. And I got introduced to the folk music scene from the 1960s. I really fell in love with that music. At first I thought it sounded kind of funny or almost like a joke, and then I began to get a sense of the flow of American history and American culture that came through it, which is, I think, exactly why people fell in love with it back in the late 50s and early 60s. And so through knowing that music, I heard about Caffe Lena up in Saratoga Springs, and I was told by somebody that they thought that it was still open, that Lena had died, but they thought that it was still going, and we would head over there and check it out. And I had just recently moved up to the area and was looking for really interesting cultural things to do. And so I applied for the job at Caffe Lena, not knowing who I was applying to, just knowing that it was a nonprofit arts organization. And when I got the call back, I discovered at that point it was Caffe Lena. And so going for my interview was my first time entering the venue.
Wow. Caffe Lena is turning 60 next year. Can you believe it? What are some of the big plans you have in store for that?
We are doing a number of musical events. We're looking for opportunities to share our story, and we're looking for opportunities to connect that history with not only the future of the venue, but what's going on right now. Because it's a history that's unfolding at the same pace that it's always unfolded as time goes by. And so I think that ever since the first days of the venue, it has been a stage for the best of what's out there in independent music that's rooted in our musical heritage as a country. And with every generation that comes along, there's a new way of interpreting those sounds and that story and continuing the story. So all of the ways that we're celebrating the 60th anniversary are meant to not just be about the past, but about the future. Because the venue just in the last couple of years has undergone a tremendous transformation. And so linking the past and the future is really what our goal is. So yeah, we're going to be doing some exciting radio opportunities with WEXT. We have this documentary. I think I can go ahead and say that Stewart's is going to be naming an ice cream flavor for Caffe Lena.
Awesome.
And a few other things along those lines, kind of special events that'll be a lot of fun.
That's terrific.
Yeah. I remember when I arrived in Caffe Lena for the very first time, having the same experience that I think a lot of people have when they arrived in the old cafe, which was it has such a huge reputation. Everybody's heard of this place. And it's just this little simple room. And back then in particular, it just had a couple of fluorescent lights, and it had yellow paint on the walls and purple paint on the floors, and it was chipped and kind of very worn. So it took me a little bit to understand what was so special about the place. But what I very quickly learned was that people cared very, very deeply about the cafe. And I think that if I had understood on that first day how deeply people cared about the cafe and what it meant to the world of American music, I don't know that I would have had the nerve to take the job. So fortunately, I just kind of discovered that as I went. the other impression that I had, I gained in my first few weeks there, was that at that time, it felt like a family that had lost its mother. Lena had already been gone about 5 years, but it hadn't really gelled yet in terms of new leadership and having a vision that went beyond what Lena had wanted for the place. It was now a nonprofit organization. There was a world of possibilities in front of it, but there was sort of like a scattershot approach to what it wanted to be. Just like a family where all the kids aren't really used to working together, they're just used to talking to mom. And so listening was a really important part of my first couple of years there, just getting to know all the people that cared about the place, that had a dream for it, that had a vision for its future, and then beginning to get a sense of what could work and what should be taken out of consideration, and just listening and being intuitive.
Sarah, how has Caffe Lena managed to stay relevant in an entertainment on-demand landscape?
I think that the more that there's entertainment on demand that is spoon-fed to people through commercial advertising, the more people crave the authenticity of Caffe Lena. People want to hear from the artist themselves. They don't want to be advertised to. They want to be able to enter a room where they are received like a friend or a neighbor. They want to be able to share that space. So at Caffe Lena, people share the tables with each other. So you're sitting down with other people, and the only thing you know is that you both came to see this show. And that's a good conversation starter. And friendships form at those tables. And then the concert starts, and the music is delivered from the heart by the person who created it. There's a connection with the audience. And those are intimate personal experiences with music that in a space that just radiates its history and its backstory, in a space that feels important to people, and that makes people feel like they're part of something larger than that moment. Those are the things that I think keep Caffe Lena relevant. And I don't want to say that it's, that it's like bulletproof. We have to be very careful in terms of our curation and in terms of staying true to our values and our style. And I think that we have managed to do that through some tremendous changes, and people feel that. So people come in, and sometimes they haven't come for a few years, and at first they're a little bit apprehensive, and they're wondering if that very particular kind of magical mojo that we have might be gone because of the big renovations. And after they've sat there for a few minutes, they say, I'm not sure how you did it, because it's beautiful and it looks different, but it's the same place. And that has a lot to do with just the heart that people bring to it. And I'm not just talking about the staff and not just the performers, but it's the people in the seats. And collectively, we carry that culture forward. And that's what people prize about it.
And for all of those reasons, that is why Caffe Lena is one of my favorite places on earth.
Yeah.
How do you choose the artists to put on stage?
There are many, many options, I'll tell you that. There is an amazing wealth of wonderful music being made out there in the world that is appropriate for Caffe Lena. And that really accelerated a few years ago. As much as they're a commercial act that would never be seen on the Caffe Lena stage, Mumford & Sons really changed the music industry. I tie it back to them. And that was the point at which the folk instruments began to be popular again. It's sort of like a second wave of a folk revival. And then we started to see like Berklee College of Music and even New England conservatory coming up with these roots music programs. And so then there was this whole generation of young musicians coming out of formal training doing folk music. So the level of musicianship and the quality of entertainment was just fantastic. So that was good for the cafe and helped it foster this resurgence that you've seen at the venue and really across the roots music industry. So I find music by listening to WEXT. That would be one way. By looking at the radio charts that are out there, the Billboard charts, keeping an eye on the press, like Rolling Stone magazine or No Depression or Brooklyn Vegan and places like that that review music, and I have a whole industry of agents that I work with, and basically what we're doing is we're going after two, I would say 3 categories of music. One is coffee house favorites, people that started playing at the cafe fairly early in their careers, that our audience knows and loves and likes to see at the cafe once a year. We have a few people like that. Then we have people who are legendary artists. We just had Judy Collins in for a few days, for example, who are known throughout the music world. And because they had roots as folk musicians when they were first coming up, they know about Caffe Lena, and they are willing to step out of the concert hall and come into this tiny little venue because it has historic importance and because all of their friends have played there since dating back to 1960. And then the third category, and this is the one that's really the most fun for me, is to go out and find the artists who are just breaking into the national music scene. They are not brand new artists. Lots of times they've been working some region for a while, but now suddenly they're on the national music radar, and you see them starting to headline the big festivals, and you hear them on the radio a lot, and the press is talking about them, and they are the exciting next generation that's coming along. And I love to find those artists, and we present them regularly throughout the month, but particularly through we call it our Bright series, our Bright New Music series. Every month we have somebody come in who's playing in this region for the very first time, and we feature them and we say, this is somebody we're really excited about, and we fill up the house for somebody who's never played around here before.
Sarah, tell me about some of your favorite performances at Caffe Lena.
Gosh.
So many, right?
Yeah, so many. I have different categories of favorites. For example, there are artists that I have booked now for the entire time that I've been at Caffe Lena, and I've been there almost 25 years now.
Wow.
And so listening to their show, singing along with the audience, it's like comforting. It's like going home. And somebody like Bill Staines or Roy Bookbinder, they fall into that category. Very special to me. Also some regional favorites like Jim Gaudet and Bob Warren. They have such a deep history with the place, and it really feels like you're almost at a family picnic when you go to those shows. And then I have bands like, I remember the first time that Darlingside played at Caffe Lena. They came as part of our Emerging Artist Breakout, which was a Wednesday night series that was mostly for high school bands, but sometimes a little bit beyond high school. And so that was the only place I could fit them in, and they didn't have any following, and I didn't have the tools in place yet to promote brand new bands the way that I do now. And so I had them come in as part of the Emerging Artist Breakout. They were at that point living in Northampton, and I got a call from a fan from Northampton that said, you booked this band Darlingside? I just want to tell you, fasten your seatbelt. You are going to be blown away when you hear them live on your stage. And we had probably maybe 30 people who had driven in from Northampton to come and see them at Caffe Lena, plus a scattering of local fans and so forth, or not fans of them, but fans of Caffe Lena who were just giving it a try. The admission would have been $5. And, and they did a show that was simply unforgettable. And every show since has been unforgettable with them. So there are times I can think back through my days at the cafe where there have been a handful of people in the audience, where there was a tiny house, and somebody got up on that stage and they gave it their all. And I always say in those cases, there's more music per ear, so it just fills you. It fills you, and some of the times those are the most unforgettable performances. And then you have something like we just had Doc Severinsen at the cafe. And the music is just so beautiful and spectacular, and that person is so much a part of the American story that you're just in tears to have that experience with just 100 people gathered together shoulder by shoulder in this space that's not much bigger than your average living room. And how do we get to be so lucky? I don't even know.
Right. Sarah, tell me, what role do the volunteers at Caffe Lena play?
The volunteers play a couple of roles at Caffe Lena. There's just the sheer workforce of them. These are people who, to have fun and to unwind, like to roll up their sleeves and put on an apron and get to work. And frankly, I can kind of relate to that. A lot of them are volunteers also at Saratoga Performing Arts Center and at the Egg and at the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall and at the Soup Kitchen and at the hiking club and at the high school. And I mean, they're just an amazing bunch of community members. Some of them are hardcore music lovers. Some of them are hardcore community lovers. They come for a lot of different reasons. And they put their best foot forward. They will do whatever you ask them to do. And the value that they have is not just their work, but that it reinforces that we are not just your average watering hole providing entertainment, but that it's really a place that's about building a community around an authentic experience of music. And that everybody is there because they want to share that experience, not because anybody's, making the best paycheck they've ever gotten. Nobody owns Caffe Lena. And I think that when you see people in volunteer aprons waiting on the tables, doing a great job, but obviously doing it like just your average Joe doing a great job, not like a trained professional who's going to be upselling and trying to get you to buy more than you came to buy and stuff like that. They're just more like, Mom, do you want something to drink? Do you want something to eat? And just kind of handling it like that and bringing you something lovely that was prepared with love and care. So it's part of creating that culture that demonstrates who we are at our core, which is a community of music lovers.
And when you go to Caffe Lena, you must have the chocolate chip cookies.
The chocolate chip cookies.
They are the best.
Lena's recipe.
Wow.
Yeah. And these days, we did change up the chocolate chips because we have organic fair trade chocolate chips in our chocolate chip cookies now.
Yummy.
Because we're just that kind of place.
Love it. What does the future have in store for Caffe Lena, and how do you envision Caffe Lena in 2050?
Mm-hmm. I think, the thing that I can see evolving quickly at the cafe these days is our ability to reach an audience beyond our four walls. And that is a very exciting area of growth for us because honestly, not all of our shows, but many of our shows do sell out now. So what we're looking at is what do we do when we've actually maxed out our capacity within the cafe? How do we serve all of the people who maybe got shut out of a show, but who would still like to see it. So we have, we live stream our concerts, and we're able to reach an audience via the internet that way. And we do regularly have people tuning in from all over the country, and a few people from outside the U.S. borders who like to watch our shows regularly. We have a YouTube channel, and on that you will find highlights from the live stream, as well as a new series that we're doing called Late Night Sessions, which is a beautifully produced video series where we, after the show is over and the crowd has gone, we set out candles on the tables, and we clear back some of the furniture, and the band stands in the middle of the room with minimal amplification and so forth, and they play a song, and the atmosphere is just magical. Wow. It's this sense of the ghosts coming out of the bricks and watching the music. And so we're giving people through that video series this glimpse into the kind of behind the scenes of the cafe and what it's like when the audience is not there in these private moments. And we do that for our artists with no cost to them, so that they can have these wonderful videos that show what they're able to do, and we hope that that will open the next door for them in their career. So using video and internet to share what we do with a wider audience, and also to provide content to artists that will help open doors for them. And I think that that's a big part of what we're developing at this point. So in 2050, that's a long way down the road, but I hope that that this will remain an authentic space for people to share the human story through music, and that through whatever technology is available at that time, people around the world will be able to get a taste of it.
And I love the symbiotic relationship between WEXT and Caffe Lena. We play an awful lot of up-and-coming emerging artists, and some of the artists who have been around for a long time that are not heard on regular radio. Mm-hmm. We play the artists, Heather Maloney, Kaya Cater, Jocelyn and Chris Arndt, Sean Rao, Darling Side, even Judy Collins and John Sebastian, and then people can go and see them at Caffe Lena. I think that's a wonderful thing. I hear from so many artists, so many people in the community who hear them on the radio and then email us, call us and saying, oh, that was a wonderful show, thanks for playing them, and we love seeing them at Caffe Lena. It's a really wonderful relationship.
Yeah, people come in all the time and say, oh, I just heard this on WEXT this afternoon, and I was so relieved that you still had some tickets available for the show. So there is a tremendous amount of discovery that happens through WEXT. Like I said, it's a rich, rich time in the independent music world right now, and a station like WEXT that's locally curated by real people for this market, that's playing popular music that's kind of underground, that is such a rarity in the music industry. And when I go out to national music conferences and so forth, people have heard of WEXT, and they envy us because it's a treasure. And many musical markets don't have that kind of resource available to them. And it is the glue that binds together the many excellent venues that are operating in the Capital District. And it is a very important part of what makes this a known and respected music scene, because there is no one venue that could create that. We're lucky to be in a market that has the asset of excellent venues. We're lucky that we have WEXT letting people know what's going on and creating cohesion in that music scene.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much, and thank you for all you do, all your volunteers, providing a wonderful space, and all the best for another 60 years.
Thank you for all you do.